She had always been the invisible shadow of the mansion, taking care of the child with affection and dedication. But one night, the nanny finds herself at the center of an accusation that could destroy her life: the theft of $800,000. The truth, however, is much more complex, and the nanny soon discovers that her role in the story is far greater than she imagined. The fight for justice begins, and nothing will ever be the same. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll continue. In the imposing Kingston family mansion, located in the elegant Ocean View Gardens community in Silver Beach, London, Victoria Hayes walked through the sprawling corridors decorated with valuable artworks and antiques. The golden light from the crystal chandeliers reflected on the Italian marble floor as she ascended the grand staircase towards the room of William, the 8-year-old son of her employer, Robert Kingston. The echo of music and laughter from the party on the lower floor could be heard even through the mansion's thick walls. It was another of the renowned Kingston family receptions, where businessmen, politicians, and celebrities gathered to maintain their powerful connections in the London business world. Victoria, at 32, had worked as a nanny in the mansion for 5 years. Her dedication to little William was known to all. The boy, who had lost his biological mother when he was only 2, had found in Victoria the maternal affection he so desperately needed. Robert, a widower for 3 years, had remarried Amanda, a 29-year-old socialite known for her beauty and ambition. "Auntie Vi will you stay with me until I fall asleep?" William asked, already tucked into his 4-poster bed, clutching his favorite teddy bear. "Of course, my prince," Victoria replied with an affectionate smile, adjusting the blankets around the boy. "Do you want me to read you a story?" William shook his head. "I just want you to stay here. There are too many strange people downstairs." Victoria sat on the edge of the bed and ran her hand through the boy's dark hair. She knew William wasn't comfortable with most of his stepmother's friends. To be honest, she didn't much care for those people herself. "Victoria!" Amanda's cold voice cut through the moment of tranquility. She stood at the doorway, dazzling in her red dress that highlighted her perfect silhouette. "Robert is asking for William. The Montagues want to see how much he's grown." "He's almost asleep, madam," Victoria replied respectfully. "Perhaps it's not the best time to—" "I didn't ask for your opinion," Amanda interrupted with an artificial smile. "William needs to learn to socialize with people of our class, not cling to the nanny all the time." William gripped Victoria's hand tightly. "I don't want to go downstairs, Amanda. I'm sleepy." Amanda's gaze hardened for a second, but was quickly replaced by another smile. "Just for 10 minutes, darling. Then you can come back and sleep. Your father will be very happy." Reluctantly, the boy got up. Victoria helped him put on his slippers and straightened his superhero pajamas. "Come on, I'll go down with you," she said, trying to comfort him. "That won't be necessary," Amanda said. "You can take the opportunity to tidy the room. We'll be back shortly." Before Victoria could protest, Amanda had already taken William's hand and led him into the corridor. The boy looked back with a pleading expression, but Victoria merely smiled encouragingly. It wasn't her place to question the lady of the house's orders. As she tidied William's room, Victoria could hear the music and buzz of the party growing louder. Through the large windows of the room, she could see the illuminated garden where some guests chatted near the infinity pool that seemed to merge with the distant ocean. The Kingston mansion was truly a spectacle of luxury and good taste. 20 minutes passed with no sign of William, so Victoria decided to discreetly go downstairs to check if everything was all right. She always tried to be invisible during these events, moving like a shadow through the corners of the house. Upon reaching the foot of the stairs, she spotted Robert Kingston conversing animatedly with a group of men. Tall, elegant, and with graying temples that gave him an air of distinction, Robert was the prototype of the successful businessman. Not far from him, Amanda smiled and touched the arm of Henry Meadows, Robert's partner and best friend. The boy was not with them. Victoria scanned the ballroom until she found William sitting alone in a corner, distractedly playing with a glass of lemonade. She approached him with a discreet smile. "Everything all right, Prince?" The boy's eyes lit up when he saw her. "Auntie Vi, I want to go back to my room." Your stepmother said you needed to stay here, Victoria replied softly. Just a few more minutes, okay? Then I'll talk to her. She doesn't even care about me, William murmured. She just brought me here and then left me alone. Victoria felt her heart ache. It was true that Amanda didn't show much affection for her stepson. Since marrying Robert 2 years ago, she seemed more interested in the social benefits of the marriage than in forming a family. Victoria! Amanda's voice rang out behind her again. I don't recall asking you to come downstairs. Pardon me, madam. I just came to check on William, Victoria replied, maintaining her composure. As you can see, he's perfectly fine, Amanda said with barely disguised irritation. Please return to your duties. And William, come with me. Your father wants to introduce you to the Montagues. The boy looked at Victoria sadly but obeyed. Victoria noticed that Henry Meadows observed the scene with interest from across the room, an enigmatic smile on his lips. She ascended the stairs again, feeling uneasy. There was something in the atmosphere of that night that worried her. As she passed the corridor leading to Robert's study, she noticed that the door was ajar, which was unusual during parties. The study was Robert's sanctuary, where he kept important documents and valuables. For an instant, Victoria hesitated at the door. Should she close it? Warn Robert. As she pondered, she heard footsteps approaching quickly. Without thinking twice, she moved away and continued her path to William's room, pretending she had seen nothing. 2 hours later, the party began to disperse. Victoria, who had remained in William's room awaiting his return, was about to go downstairs again when she heard a commotion on the lower floor. Raised voices, hurried footsteps. Something was wrong. Little William finally appeared at the door, accompanied by one of the maids. What's happening? Victoria asked. I don't know exactly, the maid replied in a low voice. It seems something is missing from the master's study. Everyone is agitated downstairs. Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. The half-open study door. Had someone entered there during the party? Stay with the boy, she told the maid. I'll see if I can help with anything. As she descended the stairs, she found the main hall in an uproar. The last guests were hastily leaving, while Robert, his face red with anger, gestured violently. Amanda stood beside him, a hand on her husband's shoulder in a gesture of support. But her eyes revealed something different. Fear, concern. £800,000, Robert shouted. 800,000 in cash that was in my safe to close the deal with the Argentinians tomorrow. How can this happen in my own house? Henry Meadows, still present, seemed to try to calm his friend. Robert, let's think calmly. Who knew about the existence of this money? Only me, you and Amanda, Robert replied, running his hands through his hair in despair. And of course, the staff might suspect. Everyone knows I keep valuables in the study sometimes. It was at that moment that Amanda spotted Victoria standing at the foot of the stairs. Her eyes narrowed, and, for an instant, something sinister crossed her face, an almost imperceptible smile. Robert, she said softly, I think I know who can help us clarify this. All eyes turned in the direction. Amanda pointed, directly at Victoria, who felt her blood run cold in her veins as she realized that something terrible was about to happen. The silence that followed was cutting. Victoria felt her heart pound as everyone in the room watched her. Robert Kingston walked slowly towards her, his face a mixture of disbelief and contained fury. Victoria, he said in a controlled voice, were you in my study tonight? No, sir, she replied firmly. I spent the entire night looking after William and Amanda interrupted her. Interesting, because I saw you coming out of the study corridor a few hours ago. When I went downstairs to get William, Victoria felt her throat go dry. I just passed through the corridor. I noticed the door was ajar, but I didn't go in. I thought about telling you, but you decided not to say anything, Amanda completed, approaching with a victorious smile on her lips. Very convenient, don't you think, Robert? Henry Meadows, who until then had observed the scene with clinical interest, intervened. Let's be calm. We can't accuse anyone without concrete evidence. Evidence? Amanda laughed without humor. She was seen near the study at the approximate time. The money disappeared. No one else would have a reason to go in there. "This is absurd," Victoria exclaimed, feeling tears of indignation burn in her eyes. "I would never steal anything from Mr. Robert. I've worked in this house for 5 years. I care for William as if he were my own son." "Perhaps that's the problem," Amanda whispered in Robert's ear, but loud enough for everyone to hear. She grew too attached to the boy. Maybe she wanted to secure a better future for herself. Robert seemed torn. He looked at Victoria as if seeing her for the first time. 5 years of loyalty were being questioned in a few minutes. "Mr. Robert, please," Victoria pleaded. "You know me. You know I would never do something like this." "And where exactly were you when the party started?" Amanda asked. "Because I went to William's room around 8 and you weren't there." "I was helping in the kitchen," Victoria replied. "Mrs. Regina needed help with the canapes. Then I went upstairs to be with William." "Regina has already left," Amanda said quickly, "but I'm sure we can verify that tomorrow." "Victoria," Robert finally spoke, his voice calmer yet distant, "I'm going to call the police. If you have nothing to hide, you don't need to worry." Panic seized Victoria. She couldn't believe this was happening. "Sir, please, I didn't do anything. I was with William practically all night." "Practically," Amanda repeated with emphasis. "Not all the time." It was at that moment that William appeared at the top of the stairs, his eyes wide with fear. "Daddy? Why are you shouting at Auntie Vi?" Everyone turned to the boy. Amanda quickly went up the stairs and tried to lead him back to his room. "It's nothing, darling. Adult matters. Go back to bed." "No." William dodged her and ran down the stairs to Victoria, clinging to her waist. "Auntie Vi was with me almost all night. She only came downstairs because I was alone at the party." Victoria placed her hand protectively on the boy's head, but her gaze did not waver from Robert. "See, sir, William can confirm where I was." "He's just a child," Amanda said, coming down the stairs again, "and clearly manipulated by you." "Robert, we can't trust the testimony of an 8-year-old child who is obviously attached to the nanny." Robert seemed increasingly confused, running a hand across his forehead in a sign of weariness. "William, go to your room now. Daddy needs to solve a serious problem." "But Daddy—" "Now, William!" Robert's voice thundered through the room, making the boy recoil in fright. With tears in his eyes, William looked at Victoria. "Auntie Vi—" "It's all right, my prince," she said softly, trying to suppress the tremor in her voice. "It will be all right. Do what your father asked." Reluctantly, the boy went upstairs, casting one last worried glance before disappearing down the corridor. Amanda gestured to one of the maids. "Stay. With him. Don't let him come down again." Turning to her husband, Amanda spoke in a firm voice. "Robert, we need to resolve this now. Call the police." "That won't be necessary," Henry intervened. "We can resolve this internally. After all, we don't want unnecessary scandals, do we?" Robert nodded slowly. "You're right. The last thing I need now is the press speculating about thefts in my house." Turning to Victoria, he continued, "We'll do this. You have until tomorrow to return the money. If you do, I'll consider the matter closed. You'll be fired, obviously, but I won't take legal action." "But I didn't take any money," Victoria protested desperately. "How can I return something I don't have?" "That's your choice," Robert replied coldly. "Either you return the money or you face the legal consequences." Amanda smiled discreetly, placing her hand on her husband's shoulder. "I think that's a fair offer considering the circumstances." Victoria looked around, searching for any sign of support, but found only closed or averted faces. Only Henry Meadows watched her with curiosity, as if analyzing her every reaction. "Mr. Robert," she tried one last time, "in 5 years, have I ever given you reason to doubt my honesty? Please think carefully before making this accusation." For a brief moment, something seemed to waver in Robert's eyes, a flicker of doubt. But then Amanda squeezed his shoulder gently, and his expression hardened again. "You are dismissed for today, Victoria. Return tomorrow at 10 a.m. with the money or a very convincing explanation. Otherwise, I will call the police." With a heavy heart and silent tears streaming down her face, Victoria went upstairs to get her bag. As she passed William's room, she hesitated. She wanted so much to say goodbye to the boy, to explain that she had done nothing wrong. But the door was closed, and she could hear muffled sobs coming from inside. In the living room, Amanda and Henry conversed in low voices while Robert poured himself a generous dose of whiskey. "I think you're being hasty," Henry commented. "I've known Victoria for years, ever since I started coming to your house. She always seemed extremely dedicated to William." "People change, Henry," Amanda replied before Robert could speak. "Or perhaps we never truly knew her." Victoria descended the stairs silently, clutching her bag tightly. She felt humiliated, betrayed, after years of dedication to that family, especially to William, whom she loved like a son. "I'm leaving," she announced with dignity, despite the tears. "But I want you to know, Mr. Robert, that my conscience is clear. I would never betray your trust or harm this family in any way." Robert merely nodded, without looking directly at her. Amanda, on the other hand, stared at her with a triumphant smile that sent shivers down Victoria's spine. As Victoria left the Kingston mansion that night, she couldn't imagine that her life was about to completely crumble, that this accusation would be just the beginning of a series of events that would reveal secrets much darker than she could ever imagine. The taxi that took her to her modest apartment in Eastwick seemed to travel an infinite distance. From the luxury of Silver Beach to the simplicity of her neighborhood, it was like crossing different worlds that she had learned to navigate over the past 5 years, always with honesty and dedication. Arriving home, Victoria collapsed onto the sofa, finally allowing herself to cry openly. How could she prove her innocence? How could she return money she had never taken? Her phone rang, startling. Her. It was an unknown number. For a moment she hoped it was Robert, perhaps having reconsidered his position, but the voice on the other end surprised her. "Victoria, it's Henry Meadows. We need to talk." Confusion overwhelmed her. Why would Robert's partner be calling at that hour of the night? "About what, Mr. Henry?" "About what really happened tonight," he replied in a grave voice. "Meet me tomorrow at the Kensington Cafe at 9 a.m. Come alone and don't tell anyone about this conversation." Before Victoria could ask more, Henry hung up, leaving her even more perplexed. What did he know? Was it a trap, or did he really want to help? Meanwhile, in the Kingston mansion, William cried silently in his room, hugging the teddy bear Victoria had given him for his last birthday. In the corridor, Amanda walked silently, a satisfied smile on her lips as she checked if no one was around. Then she discreetly entered the master bedroom she shared with Robert and carefully closed the door. Lying in bed, Robert stared at the ceiling, disturbed by the night's events. "I still can't believe it," he murmured as Amanda approached. "Victoria, after so long." "Sometimes the closest people are the ones who disappoint us the most," Amanda said, sliding into bed beside him. "But don't worry, I'm sure everything will be resolved." What Robert didn't see was the calculating gleam in Amanda's eyes as she hugged him, a gleam that hid secrets much deeper than anyone could imagine. The next morning dawned grey in London, as if the sky reflected Victoria's state of mind. She had barely slept, tossing and turning in bed as she tried to find an explanation for the nightmare her life had become. By 8:30 a.m., she was already on her way to the Kensington Cafe. She wore simple clothes, jeans, a white t-shirt and a light coat, very different from the uniforms she wore at the Kingston mansion. Her face, normally serene and smiling, showed deep dark circles and an expression of worry. The Kensington Cafe was an elegant establishment, frequented mainly by the London elite. Victoria felt out of place as she entered, aware of the scrutinizing glances she received. She chose a discreet table in the back and ordered a simple coffee, nervously waiting for Henry Meadows. Punctually at 9 a.m., Henry entered the cafe. Tall, with neatly cut grey hair and an impeccable suit, he exuded confidence and power. He located Victoria immediately and walked towards her with determined steps. "Good morning, Victoria," he greeted, sitting opposite her. "Thank you for coming." "You said we needed to talk about what happened yesterday," she replied directly. "What do you know about it?" Henry observed her for a moment before replying, as if assessing her sincerity. First, I want you to know that I don't believe you stole that money." Victoria felt tears of relief well up in her eyes. "Thank you, but why are you telling me this? Why did you call me here?" "Because I think I know who really took the money, or at least who is behind it," he said, lowering his voice. "And it's not you." Victoria's heart raced. "Who then?" "Before I answer, I need to understand a few things. How long have you noticed changes in Amanda's behavior towards you?" The question caught Victoria by surprise. "Well, Amanda was never exactly friendly with me since she married Robert. At first she tried, but it soon became clear that she was bothered by my closeness to William." Henry nodded. "And in recent months, any more significant changes?" Victoria reflected for a moment. "Yes, she's been more hostile, always making comments about how I get too close to William, suggesting I'm overstepping professional boundaries. She even told Robert that perhaps it was time to hire someone more professional and less emotional." "As I imagined," Henry murmured. "Victoria, what I'm about to tell you is delicate and potentially dangerous for both of us, but I need someone else to know the truth." He leaned forward, speaking even softer. "I believe Amanda has been stealing from Robert for months. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. As Robert's accountant and partner, I noticed some discrepancies in the company books." "But why would she do that? Robert is rich. She has access to everything she wants." "It's not that simple," Henry explained. "Amanda has other interests, and another man." The revelation hit Victoria like a blow. "She's cheating on Robert? Are you sure?" "Absolutely. I've seen messages, suspicious meetings. Initially, I thought about warning Robert, but he's so in love that he probably wouldn't believe me without concrete evidence. And the money from yesterday? I believe she took it, or had someone take it. And then she seized the perfect opportunity to blame you. But why? Why accuse me?" "You are the only real obstacle for her," Henry replied with a sigh. "Amanda wants total control over Robert, and you represent a threat to that control because of your influence over William. The boy clearly prefers you to her, and that deeply bothers her." Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. It all made terrible sense. "What do we do now? How do I prove my innocence?" "It won't be easy," Henry admitted. "Without concrete evidence, it will be your word against hers. And unfortunately, in the current situation, Robert tends to believe his wife." "I need to talk to William," Victoria said suddenly. "He was there. He knows I was with him almost the whole time. Robert won't accept a child's testimony, especially if Amanda intervenes. We need something more substantial." Henry paused, thoughtful. "I have an idea, but it's risky. I need to investigate Amanda's finances further, see if I can find a pattern, a secret account, something to prove my suspicions. And in the meantime, what do I do? Robert expects me to show up with the money or an explanation at 10 o'clock. "Don't go," Henry said firmly. "If you show up without the money, he'll call the police. I need time to gather evidence. But if I don't go, it will look like I'm running away, admitting guilt. Better than being arrested for a crime you didn't commit. Trust me, Victoria. I'll help you clear your name." Reluctantly, Victoria agreed. Henry left the cafe first, after arranging a secure way to communicate. Victoria remained for a few more minutes, trying to process everything she had heard. Amanda the traitor, Amanda the thief, Amanda her accuser. Upon leaving the cafe, Victoria decided to stop at a bank. Her meager nanny's salary didn't allow her to have large savings, but perhaps she could negotiate a loan, buy time while Henry investigated. However, upon arriving at the bank, she was informed that her name had been included in a list of debtors, apparently due to a recent complaint. "That's impossible," she protested. "I've never had debts." "I'm sorry, madam," the manager replied coldly, "but your name is in the system. I cannot approve any loan." Leaving the bank, Victoria felt cornered. No money, no chance to prove her innocence, unable even to speak to William. She was about to take a bus home when her cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered hesitantly. "Auntie Vi?" William's childish voice brought tears to her eyes instantly. "Will, how did you manage to call me?" Is everything all right? I'm using Rose, the maid's phone, he explained in a low voice. She let me call when Amanda left. Auntie Vi, what happened? Why did you leave? Daddy said you took money from him, but I know you wouldn't do that. Victoria swallowed the lump in her throat. Of course I wouldn't, my prince. There was a misunderstanding, but everything will be all right. Amanda said you're not coming back, the boy continued, his voice choked. She said you were mean and that you fooled us all this time. Anger rose in Victoria's chest. How dared Amanda poison an innocent boy's mind? William, listen carefully. Don't believe those lies. I would never do anything to hurt you or your father. You know that in your heart, don't you? Yes, I do, he replied with conviction. And I told Daddy that, but he doesn't listen to me. He only listens to Amanda. Where is your father now? At work. He left early today. He seemed very angry. Amanda said it was because of you. Victoria closed her eyes, trying to control her frustration. William, I need you to be strong, okay? Keep being the amazing boy you are. Soon, everything will be resolved. Can I come see you? He asked hopefully. Now is not a good time, darling. But I promise we'll see each other soon. Amanda is coming back, he whispered suddenly. I need to hang up. I love you, Auntie Vi. I love you too, my prince, she replied. But the call had already ended. That brief conversation with William rekindled Victoria's determination. She couldn't just give up and let Amanda win. She needed to fight not only for herself, but also for the boy she loved like a son. Determined, Victoria took the bus, but not home. She needed help and knew exactly where to look. Her cousin, Felicity Hayes, was a private investigator. If anyone could help her gather evidence against Amanda, it would be Felicity. Felicity's office was in an old building in central London. Small and unluxurious, it contrasted sharply with the opulence of the Kingston mansion. Victoria entered without announcing herself, finding her cousin focused in front of a computer. Victoria? Felicity was surprised. What are you doing here at this hour? Shouldn't you be working? I need your help, Fel, Victoria said, closing the door behind her. I'm in serious trouble. Over the next 40 minutes, Victoria recounted everything that had happened, from the party to her conversation with Henry that morning. Felicity listened attentively, making occasional notes. This Amanda seems like quite a piece of work, Felicity commented when Victoria finished. But we need to be careful. If Henry is right, and she really is, the thief, we're dealing with someone dangerous and calculating. Can you help me? Felicity smiled, the kind of smile that indicated she was ready for a challenge. Of course I can. First, let's find out more about this Amanda. Where she came from, her past, possible previous relationships with rich men. What about Robert? He's probably called the police by now. Leave that to me. I have contacts at the station. I can buy some time. Meanwhile, you should stay somewhere safe. You can't go home. It's the first place they'll look for you. Victoria nodded, feeling simultaneously relieved to have help and apprehensive about what was to come. What do you think Amanda really wants? Why steal from her own husband? Money, power, control, Felicity replied thoughtfully. Or perhaps she's planning something bigger. Either way, we'll find out, and when we do... I'll get my life back, Victoria completed with determination, and protect William from that woman. Meanwhile, at the Kingston mansion, Amanda watched from the living room window, a glass of champagne in hand despite the hour. Her cell phone rang and she answered with a smile. All according to plan, she said softly. The nanny has been expelled and is being sought for theft. Soon Robert will sell his share of the company to cover the loss from the Argentinian deal. And then, on the other end of the line, a male voice responded something that made Amanda laugh. Patience, darling, she murmured. Soon we'll have everything we've always wanted. Hanging up the phone, Amanda took a sip of champagne, her gaze falling on a family photo on the wall. Robert, William and her, all smiling. A calculated smile formed on her lips as she looked at the image. Poor fools, she whispered to herself, they have no idea what's coming. 3 days had passed since the accusation. Victoria was staying in Felicity's small apartment in Islington, leaving only when absolutely necessary. Her face had appeared in local newspapers. Nanny accused of stealing $800,000 from Kingston family, thanks to Robert's influence in the London media. Her reputation was destroyed. "I found something interesting," Felicity announced as she entered the apartment that rainy afternoon. She shook her umbrella and placed a folder on the table. "I think we finally know who Amanda Kingston really is." Victoria, who was making coffee, approached anxiously. "What did you find? Out?" "For starters, her name isn't Amanda, or at least it wasn't until a few years ago. She was called Adrienne Miller and grew up in Kenton, the daughter of middle-class parents." Felicity opened the folder, revealing several photographs and documents. "I got this from a contact at the registry office. She changed her name. Why?" "Probably to hide her past. Adrienne Miller has been involved in at least 2 similar cases in the last 5 years. Always the same pattern. She approaches wealthy men, usually older or emotionally vulnerable, marries quickly and then starts siphoning off money." Victoria examined the old photos of Amanda Adrienne, shocked by the transformation. Her hair, once natural brown, was now platinum blonde. Her nose seemed to have undergone surgery, as had other facial features. But the eyes, those calculating eyes, were unmistakable. "I got information about her previous marriage," Felicity continued. "It was to a businessman from Manchester, Maurice Sterling. The marriage lasted only 2 years. In the end, he had lost almost half of his fortune in unsuccessful investments suggested by her." "And how did she meet Robert?" "At a charity event shortly after her divorce from Maurice was finalized. She was already using the name Amanda by then. Robert was still grieving his wife, vulnerable with a young son, the perfect target." Victoria felt a pang in her chest, thinking about how Robert and William had been deceived. "We need to show this to Robert immediately." "It's not that simple," Felicity warned. "Amanda is clever. All her actions are technically legal. She didn't directly steal from Maurice. He agreed to the investments she suggested. As for the current case, we can't prove she took the money from the study." "And about the lover? Henry mentioned she has another man." Felicity smiled triumphantly. "That was easier to find out. In recent months, Amanda has been regularly meeting a man in a flat in Chelsea." She slid a photo across the table. "Recognize him?" Victoria gasped when she saw the image. "Leonard Meadows? Henry's brother?" "Exactly. Leonard Meadows, Robert's partner's younger brother. From what I've found, he worked at the Kingston Company for a while but was fired about a year ago for embezzlement. Apparently, Robert caught him transferring company money to personal accounts." "Wait, that doesn't make sense. Why would Henry help me expose Amanda if his own brother is involved with her?" Felicity frowned. "That's the part I haven't been able to figure out yet. Maybe Henry doesn't know about his brother's involvement. Or perhaps he's also part of the scheme," Victoria completed, feeling a chill. "Maybe he's using me somehow." "We need to be careful," Felicity agreed. "Anyway, I have one more important piece of information. I managed to get access to the Kingston Mansion's security cameras." "How?" Victoria's eyes widened. "Better you don't know," Felicity smiled enigmatically. "The important thing is that I have the recordings from the night of the party. I haven't had time to analyze everything yet, but maybe we can find something that proves your innocence." At that moment, Victoria's cell phone rang. It was Henry Meadows' number. "Put it on speaker," Felicity instructed. Victoria nodded and answered. "Hello?" "Victoria, it's Henry. We need to meet urgently. I have crucial information about Amanda and the stolen money." Victoria exchanged apprehensive glances with Felicity before responding. "Where and when?" "At Hyde Park, in front of the main palace, in an hour. Come alone, it's important." "I'll be there," Victoria replied, then hung up. "It could be a trap," Felicity immediately warned. "Or it could be our chance to find out the truth," Victoria countered. "Either way, I won't go alone. You'll come with me, but you'll stay at a distance, observing." An hour later, Victoria walked through the historic gardens of Hyde Park, one of London's most beautiful and tranquil places. The rain had stopped, leaving the air humid and fragrant with the scent of tropical plants. She spotted Henry sitting on a bench near the palace, seemingly alone. "Thank you for coming," he said when she approached. "What did you find out?" Victoria asked directly, maintaining a safe distance. Henry looked around, making sure no one was nearby. "I have proof that Amanda has been siphoning money from Robert for months, small amounts at first, which gradually increased. She has a secret account in a bank in the Cayman Islands." "And what about the money from the study?" "I'm almost certain it was her, but I still can't prove it. However, there's something more important I need to tell you." Henry paused, looking genuinely disturbed. "I discovered that my brother Leonard is involved with Amanda." Victoria tried to appear surprised. "Your brother? What do you mean?" "They've been having an affair for months, and, worse, they're planning something big. I think the ultimate goal isn't just to steal from Robert, but to take complete control of the company." "Why are you telling me this? Why are you helping me if your own brother is involved?" Henry's gaze hardened. "Because Leonard destroyed our family years ago. He was always ambitious and unscrupulous. When Robert caught him embezzling company money and fired him, I swore I would never help him again. I cannot allow him and Amanda to destroy Robert and the company we built together." The sincerity in Henry's voice was convincing, but Victoria remained cautious. "How do you intend to prove all this to Robert?" "I have documents, financial records, but I need more. We need to catch Amanda red-handed, make her confess somehow." "And how would we do that?" Henry smiled slightly. "That's where you come in. Amanda thinks you're hiding, possibly with the money. If we could make her believe you're willing to negotiate, to return the money in exchange for clearing your name." "You want me to be bait," Victoria concluded, crossing her arms. "It's risky, I know, but it might be our only chance to expose Amanda and Leonard." Before Victoria could respond, her cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Felicity. "Get out of there now! Police are coming!" Victoria stood up abruptly. "I have to go." "What? Why?" Henry seemed genuinely surprised. "The police are coming. Someone reported me." Henry paled. "It wasn't me, I swear. It must have been Amanda. She must have found out we're communicating." At that moment, sirens began to sound in the distance. Victoria didn't wait to find out if Henry was telling the truth. She ran to the side exit of the park, where Felicity was waiting for her in her car. "What happened?" Victoria asked, breathless, as she got into the vehicle. "I received an alert from my police contact. Someone called anonymously reporting that the fugitive nanny was in Hyde Park. It was a trap." "Henry?" "I don't know, but we'll find out." Felicity sped off in the car, quickly moving away from the park. "While you were talking to him, I managed to remotely hack his cell phone." "You what?" Victoria's eyes widened. "I have my methods," Felicity smiled. "The important thing is that now we can monitor his communications. If he's playing double, we'll find out." Meanwhile, in the Kingston mansion, Robert was in his study, sifting through documents in search of a solution to his financial problem. The disappearance of the $800,000 had seriously compromised the deal with the Argentinian investors, jeopardizing a significant part of his business. "Still working, darling?" Amanda entered silently, wearing an elegant silk robe. "I need to find a way out," Robert replied without looking up. "If we don't close this deal by the end of the week, we could lose everything to the competition." "What if we sold some company shares?" Amanda suggested casually, sitting on the edge of the desk. "Henry mentioned that Leonard Meadows is interested in investing." Robert finally looked at her, surprised. "Leonard? Henry's brother, after what he did?" "People deserve second chances," Amanda said softly. "And he has the money we need now." Before Robert could respond, William appeared at the study door, still in his pajamas despite it being late at night. "Daddy, I can't sleep," he said in a sleepy voice. Amanda sighed, visibly annoyed by the interruption. "William, we've talked about this. Your father is busy." "It's all right," Robert said, gesturing for his son to approach. "Come here, champ. What's bothering you?" "I miss Auntie Vi," the boy replied sincerely. "When is she coming back?" Robert's face hardened. "We've explained this, son. Victoria, she did something very wrong and can no longer work for us." "She didn't steal anything," William protested with surprising conviction for his age. Auntie Vi would never do that. She really loves me, not like—" He stopped himself, casting a fearful glance at Amanda. "Not like who, William?" Robert asked, intrigued by his son's reaction. Amanda quickly intervened. "He's confused and tired. Come on, William, time to go back to bed." "No." The boy dodged her when she tried to take his hand. "I want to stay with Daddy. And I want Auntie Vi back." "This is ridiculous," Amanda said, her patience clearly running out. "Robert, say something to your son." Robert watched his son carefully. There was something in William's eyes, a certainty and a determination that made him hesitate. "William," he said gently, "why are you so sure Victoria didn't take the money?" "Because she was with me almost the whole time at the party, and—" The boy hesitated, looking at Amanda again with fear. "And what, son? You can speak." "And because I saw Amanda go into your study that night," William finally said, the words tumbling out. "When I went downstairs to get water from the kitchen, after you sent me to my room, she went into the study and stayed there for a while. Then she came out with a black folder." The silence that followed was deafening. Robert looked at Amanda, whose expression had completely transformed. All the feigned affection disappeared, replaced by a calculating coldness. "This is absurd," she said finally. "Are you going to believe a child's fantasies? A child who was clearly manipulated by that nanny?" "Why would he lie about this?" Robert questioned, slowly standing up. "Because he's confused, because he misses that woman. Robert, we cannot let a child determine the course of our lives based on inventions." William, though frightened, stood firm. "I'm not making it up, Daddy. I saw her, and I heard her talking on the phone afterwards, saying that everything was going according to plan." Robert's gaze hardened as he observed Amanda's reaction. For the first time, he began to seriously question his trust in his wife. What if William was telling the truth? What if Victoria was really innocent? "I think we need to have a very serious conversation," he said finally. "William, please go to your room. I'll be there shortly." "But Daddy—" "Now, William, please." Reluctantly, the boy left, not without casting one last look at Amanda, a look that surprisingly showed not fear but defiance. When they were alone, Robert turned to Amanda. "I want the truth, now." Amanda smiled, but it was a cold smile, very different from her usual sweet smiles. "Truth? The truth is that you are as naive as your son, Robert, so easy to manipulate, so eager to believe in love. And so on that stormy night, in the luxurious study of the Kingston mansion, masks began to fall and hidden truths threatened to surface, forever altering the destiny of all involved. The night had been long and revealing for Robert Kingston. Amanda's words still echoed in his mind. So naive, so easy to manipulate. She hadn't directly denied the accusations, but neither had she confessed. Instead, she had left the study with a veiled threat. "Be careful what you believe, Robert. Some truths are too dangerous to be revealed." The sun was just beginning to rise when Robert finally made a decision. He needed to talk to Victoria. He needed to hear her side of the story directly, without Amanda's influence. The problem was finding her. Victoria had completely disappeared after the accusation. In Felicity's apartment, Victoria and her cousin analyzed the information obtained from Henry's cell phone. "This is strange," Felicity commented, frowning as she examined the messages. "Henry seems genuinely determined to help you. There's no communication with Amanda or Leonard that indicates he's involved in the conspiracy." "Then why did the police show up at Hyde Park yesterday?" Victoria questioned. "Perhaps Amanda is monitoring him too. She seems much smarter and more dangerous than we initially imagined." Victoria's cell phone rang, displaying an unknown number. After so many days of being pursued, she hesitated to answer. "It could be important," Felicity encouraged. "Answer on speaker." Cautiously, Victoria answered. "Hello? Victoria?" The male voice on the other end made her freeze. It was Robert Kingston. "Mr. Robert." "We need to talk," he said, his voice a mixture of weariness and urgency. "Personally today." Victoria exchanged glances with Felicity before responding. "Why? To turn me over to the police?" "No, to hear your side. Things have happened that made—" Me question what really occurred that night. What things? Robert hesitated. I prefer not to talk on the phone. Please, Victoria. I know I have no right to ask this after the way I treated you, but it's important. For William. The mention of the boy's name broke Victoria's last resistance. Where and when? At the London Botanical Garden near the central fountain at noon. Come alone. I'll be there, she replied, then hung up. You can't go, Felicity immediately protested. It could be another trap. I have to risk it, Victoria decided. If Robert is really starting to doubt, Amanda, this could be my only chance to clear my name. At least let me come along. I'll stay hidden, observing from a distance. Victoria agreed. As they prepared to leave, Felicity's cell phone rang. I have news, her police contact announced. I just checked the anonymous tip record that led the police to Hyde Park yesterday. The call was made from a cell phone registered in Leonard Meadows' name. Henry's brother, Victoria exclaimed. So Henry was telling the truth. It seems so, Felicity agreed. But that only makes everything even more complicated. We need to be extremely cautious today. At noon sharp, Victoria entered the London Botanical Garden. The place was relatively quiet, with few visitors due to the cloudy weather that threatened rain. She spotted Robert sitting on a bench near the central fountain, looking distractedly at the colourful fish swimming in the crystal-clear water. Seeing her approach, he stood up. He looked haggard, with deep dark circles under his eyes and the tired demeanour of someone who hadn't slept for days. Thank you for coming, he said when she stopped a few steps away. What do you want from me, Mr. Robert? Victoria asked, maintaining a formal tone. First, I want to apologize, he replied, surprising her, for the way I treated you, for the accusations, for not trusting you after so many years. Victoria felt tears well up in her eyes, but maintained her composure. You didn't know me as well as you thought. No, you're wrong, I know you. I always knew who you are, dedicated, honest, loving with William. It was I who let myself be blinded by Amanda. What made you change your mind? William, Robert admitted with a sigh. He told me he saw Amanda enter my study that night, that he saw her leaving with a black folder, exactly where I kept the money. Victoria's heart raced. And you believed him? Not immediately, but then I started to notice other things, small comments, strange behaviors. And last night, when I confronted Amanda, her reaction was revealing. She confessed. Not explicitly, but she didn't deny it either. Instead, she subtly threatened me. Robert ran a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. I started investigating on my own. I discovered that she has been regularly meeting Leonard Meadows. Henry's brother, Victoria confirmed. I know about them. Henry told me. Robert looked at her in surprise. You're in contact with Henry? He contacted me after the accusation. He said he had suspected Amanda for some time, that he noticed discrepancies in the company's accounting books. That explains why he's been acting strangely lately, Robert murmured. I thought he was hiding something from me, but he was actually trying to protect the company. And me. He mentioned that Amanda and Leonard might be planning to take control of your company. It makes sense. Amanda has been insisting that I sell part of my shares to raise capital after the theft. And guess who she suggested as a buyer? Leonard Meadows. Victoria nodded. All part of their plan. First, gradually embezzle from the company. Then, the big hit, the £800,000. Then, accuse me to divert attention. And finally, pressure you to sell shares to Leonard, giving them partial control of the company. A brilliant plan, actually, Robert admitted bitterly, and I almost fell for it completely. What do you intend to do now? Expose Amanda and Leonard, but I need concrete evidence. Suspicions and a child's testimony are not enough. Perhaps I can help, Victoria offered. My cousin Felicity is a private investigator. She has been gathering information about Amanda, or should I say Adrian Miller. Adrian? Robert frowned, confused. That's her real name. Amanda is an identity created to hide her past. She's done this before, Robert. She married a businessman in Manchester, Maurice Sterling, and brought him to near financial ruin. Robert visibly paled. My God, who is this woman I married? A professional con artist. and now she's about to deliver the final blow with Leonard's help. Before they could continue their conversation, Victoria noticed Felicity approaching quickly, her face tense with concern. "We need to go," Felicity said bluntly. "Amanda knows you're meeting." "How?" Robert and Victoria asked simultaneously. "She has access to your cell phone tracking, Robert. My contact at the carrier just warned me. She and Leonard are on their way." "Let them come," Robert said with a sudden determination. "Perhaps it's time for a direct confrontation." "It's not a good idea," Felicity warned. "They still have the power in this situation. We don't have enough proof." "Perhaps we do," Victoria intervened. "Henry mentioned documents, financial records that would prove Amanda's embezzlements." "We need those documents," Robert agreed. "Where are they?" "At Henry's office, I imagine. He said he was gathering them as evidence." Robert made a quick decision. "I'll call him now. Ask him to bring everything to my house tonight." Turning to Victoria, he continued, "I want you to be there too. It's time to end this charade once and for all." "It's too risky for Victoria to appear at your house," Felicity protested. "Amanda could do anything to silence her." "Not if I'm there to protect her," Robert assured. "And William needs to see her. He misses you very much, Victoria." The mention of the boy broke her last resistance. "I'll be there. What time?" 8 o'clock tonight. Amanda has a charity engagement that will last until at least 10. We'll have enough time to organize everything before she returns." "What about Leonard?" Felicity asked, still worried. "Leave him to me," Robert replied, a determined gleam in his eyes. "It's time to settle accounts with Mr. Meadows." Meanwhile, not far from there, Amanda and Leonard observed the scene from inside a car parked at the entrance of the London Botanical Garden. "They're planning something," Leonard said, lowering his binoculars. "Robert looks different, more determined." "He must have found out something," Amanda replied, her beautiful face contorted in an expression of rage. "That damn nanny is ruining everything." "Calm down," Leonard placed his hand on her knee. "We still have control of the situation. They don't have concrete proof, otherwise Robert would have already acted. What about your brother? Henry is clearly helping them." Leonard smiled coldly. "Leave Henry to me. It's time to have a serious talk with my little brother." "What do you suggest we do?" "We need to act before them, tonight." "But I have the charity event." "Cancel it," Leonard ordered. "Say you're sick. We need to be one step ahead. And we need to get rid of Victoria Hayes once and for all." The look they exchanged was one of pure criminal complicity. As Robert, Victoria, and Felicity walked away from the garden, planning the confrontation they believed would happen on their own terms, Amanda and Leonard devised a much more sinister plan. At the Kingston mansion, William watched the rain begin to fall through his bedroom window. Beside him, on the bed, was a small recorder that Victoria had given him for his birthday. A recorder he had used without anyone knowing to record a conversation between Amanda and someone on the phone, a conversation that could change everything. "I'll save you, Auntie Vi," the boy murmured to himself, clutching the recorder to his chest. "I'll bring you back home." The storm forming over London seemed to perfectly reflect the tension hanging over everyone involved in that web of lies, betrayal, and greed. A storm that would soon reach its peak, revealing hidden truths and forever transforming the lives of all. The rain fell relentlessly over London as Victoria and Felicity arrived at the Kingston mansion at 8 o'clock that night. The taxi driver hesitated as he stopped in front of the imposing wrought-iron gates, clearly recognizing the location from recent news about the theft. Victoria felt her stomach churn as she paid the fare, aware of the man's curious gaze. Robert was waiting for them personally at the gate, his tense face briefly illuminated by a flash of lightning. He had temporarily dismissed the usual security guard, Old Man Arthur, to avoid unwanted witnesses and questions. "Amanda has already left for the supposed event," he informed them, as he quickly led them down the imperial palm-lined driveway that led to the main entrance. The rain streamed down his face, but he seemed not to notice. Henry should arrive any moment with the documents. He was finishing organizing everything in his office. Upon entering the mansion, Victoria felt a strange mix of emotions that momentarily took her breath away. The familiar scent of polished wood and fresh flowers, the soft lighting from the crystal lamps, the echo of her own footsteps on the marble floor. This place that had been her second home for 5 years now seemed laden with tension and secrets. Every corridor, every familiar object told a different story after the events of the past few weeks. "You're drenched," Robert observed, noticing the two women's wet clothes. "Can I offer you something dry to wear?" "We're fine," Felicity replied, checking her phone. "My contact at the police confirmed they're on standby. At my signal, they'll come with a warrant." Victoria barely heard the conversation. Her eyes scanned the entrance hall, noticing small changes since her forced departure. A different vase here, a new painting there. Life continuing even in her absence. "Auntie Vi." William's emotional cry broke her contemplation, echoing through the entrance hall like music. The boy ran down the stairs, still in his pajamas despite the hour, his bare feet sliding dangerously on the marble steps. "Be careful, you'll fall," Victoria exclaimed automatically, in the same maternal tone she had used hundreds of times before. William ignored the warning and threw himself into her arms, and she knelt to receive him in a tight hug. The familiar scent of chamomile children's shampoo and the faint aroma of chocolate the boy always seemed to carry with him hit her like a wave of memories. "My prince," she whispered, warm tears streaming down her face as she buried Jade in his soft hair. "I missed you so much it hurt inside." "I knew you'd come back," he said, clinging to her as if fearing she might disappear again. His small fingers tightly gripped the wet fabric of Victoria's blouse. "I told Daddy you didn't do anything wrong. I told him every day." "And you were absolutely right," Robert agreed, observing the scene with an expression of guilt and regret that seemed to have aged his face by years. "Your Auntie Vi is innocent, and it was very brave of you to defend her when everyone doubted." "Not everyone," the boy corrected with a seriousness surprising for his age. "I never doubted, not for a second." The simplicity and conviction of that childish declaration brought new tears to Victoria's eyes. Amidst all the adult betrayal, the unwavering trust of a child had remained a beacon of truth. Gently pulling away from the embrace, William looked at Victoria with a serious expression, his eyes suddenly much older than his 8 years. "I have something to show you. Something that will help." "What is it, darling?" The boy ran back up the stairs, taking care this time, and returned moments later, with a small rectangular object in his hand, a blue digital recorder. "Remember you gave me this for my birthday? To record my great ideas for future inventions?" Victoria smiled, remembering. The gift had been simple, bought with her modest nanny's salary, but chosen with as much affection as the expensive presents Robert always gave his son. "Of course I remember. You said you'd be the next Isaac Newton." "Well, I recorded something important." William looked at his father, seeking approval, his small face suddenly apprehensive. "A conversation Amanda had on the phone. She didn't know I was listening." Robert, Victoria, and Felicity exchanged surprised glances. Felicity stepped forward, her investigator's training immediately activated. "That was a very clever idea, William. When was this?" 3 days ago." The boy lowered his voice as if still afraid of being overheard. "Amanda was in the room, talking loudly on the phone after Daddy left for work. She seemed very angry, and I was, well, spying a little." He looked at his father with a guilty expression. "I know it's not polite, but this time we'll make an exception," Robert assured, kneeling to be at his son's height. His large, protective hand rested on the boy's shoulder. "You were very brave and clever. Can we listen?" William nodded solemnly and pressed the play button. For a moment, there was only static, and then Amanda's voice filled the room, clear, irritated, and completely different from the sweet tone she normally used. "I don't care what Henry suspects. He has no concrete proof, and when we finally get control of the company, he'll be the first to be fired." "Yes, Robert is practically convinced to sell the shares to you. That talk about financial recovery after the theft worked perfectly. No, the nanny is no longer a problem. She's hiding, probably too scared to come back. I've already set the police after her. No one will believe a word she says." "The money? It's exactly where we agreed, in the flat's safe. 800,000 is just the beginning, Leo. When we have control, we can divert much more. The boy, he's just an obstacle. I'm thinking of suggesting a boarding school in Switzerland." Yes, tonight I intend to finalize the conversation with Robert. He's fragile, confused, easy to manipulate as always. An astonished silence followed the recording. Robert was pale, his hands visibly trembling as he processed not only the confirmation of the theft, but also the plans to send his son away. "A boarding school?" he murmured, more to himself than to the others. "She wanted to send William away." "Of course," Felicity said, with clinical pragmatism. "He was the only person in this house who saw through her, the only true connection you maintained independently of her. She needed to isolate him to have total control." "My God," Robert finally murmured, running a hand through his rain-damp hair. "It was all a scheme from the beginning. Our marriage, her supposed affection for William." "You have a very brave and intelligent son," Felicity commented, admiring William's presence of mind. "Not many adults would have the shrewdness to record such crucial evidence." "Yes, I do," Robert agreed, looking at his son with new respect, no longer just as a child to be protected, but as an ally who had helped uncover the truth. "This recording is the definitive proof we needed." William smiled shyly, clearly relieved that his small act of espionage was considered heroic and not reprehensible. The doorbell rang, startling everyone. The sound echoed through the mansion like an omen. "It must be Henry," Robert said, heading to the door with determined steps. But when he opened it, it wasn't his partner and friend who stood there. It was Leonard Meadows. Tall, impeccably dressed in a dark grey suit, despite the torrential rain, Leonard offered a smile that didn't reach his shrewd eyes. Water dripped from his black umbrella as he closed it with an elegant movement. "Good evening, Robert," he greeted with false cordiality. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Robert maintained admirable composure, although his body had visibly stiffened. His years as a businessman negotiating with difficult people proved useful at that crucial moment. "Leonard, what a surprise. What brings you here on a night like this?" "Amanda asked me to check if you were all right." Leonard adjusted his navy blue tie with a studied gesture. "She mentioned you seemed troubled today, worried about something." Leonard took a step forward, clearly intending to enter, but Robert subtly blocked his way, keeping the door only partially open. "I'm perfectly fine, and busy at the moment." "Busy?" Leonard peered over Robert's shoulder, his eyes widening in recognition as he spotted Victoria standing in the hall with William and Felicity. "I see you have interesting visitors. The fugitive nanny. Should I call the police? I have Detective Miller on speed dial, you know." There was a thinly veiled threat in his words, a reminder of his connections that could complicate the situation. "That won't be necessary," Robert replied coldly, opening the door completely and straightening his posture. "Victoria is here at my invitation. We are resolving some misunderstandings." Leonard's smile disappeared, replaced by a calculating expression. "Misunderstandings? Don't tell me you believe in her innocence?" "Actually, yes, and I have excellent reasons for that." Leonard studied Robert's face for a moment, clearly recalculating his strategy. Victoria could almost see the gears turning behind those cold eyes. "Robert, as your longtime friend, I am sincerely concerned." Leonard's voice took on a paternalistic tone. "This woman stole from you, betrayed your trust, and now seems to be manipulating you somehow. Think of William, of the example you're setting for your son." "It's interesting that you mention manipulation," Robert retorted, a new firmness in his voice. "Precisely what Amanda has been doing to me for 2 years with your help." A flash of surprise and concern crossed Leonard's face before he could control himself. It was only an instant, but enough to confirm their suspicions. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do, just as you know where my £800,000 are. In the flat safe in Chelsea, isn't that right?" Leonard visibly paled. His gaze shifted from Robert to Victoria, then to Felicity and William, who watched the scene tensely. The rain continued to fall, creating a curtain of water behind him, as if isolating him along with his exposed secrets. "Who told you that?" The question came out almost as a hiss. "Your accomplice, Amanda. Or should I call her Adrian? Adrian Miller from Kenton, who has pulled similar scams before. How did you find her? Or was it she who found you?" At that moment, Another voice joined the conversation. "I think my brother has some explaining to do." Everyone turned to see Henry Meadows approaching through the garden, protected by a black umbrella similar to Leonard's and carrying a thick folder under his arm. His normally friendly face was grave, marked by a determination Victoria had never seen in him before. "Henry!" Leonard practically spat the name, all pretense of civility abandoned, always interfering. "In my affairs, since childhood always trying to be the perfect son, the good brother." "Affairs? Is that what you call theft and fraud now?" Henry positioned himself beside Robert, the two men forming a physical barrier against Leonard. "It's over, Leonard. We have all the proof of the embezzlements you and Amanda have been making for months. Bank statements, suspicious transfers, forged documents, all meticulously documented." "You can't prove anything," Leonard challenged, though his voice betrayed growing nervousness. His right hand went into his jacket pocket, a gesture not unnoticed by Felicity, who discreetly placed William behind her. "Actually, we can," she intervened, stepping forward. "Besides the financial documents, we have Amanda's recording confessing everything on the phone, including her plans to take over the company. And what's more, we gained access to the mansion's security cameras from the night of the party. They clearly show Amanda entering Robert's study at 9:37 p.m. and leaving at 9:42 p.m. with a black folder, exactly the folder where Robert kept the money." "This is ridiculous," Leonard tried one last defense, beads of sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool night. "Fabrications, forgeries, words taken out of context, and we also have confirmation from the manager of the flat in Chelsea," Felicity continued relentlessly. "George Mason, an honest man who, unlike you, doesn't like to participate in criminal schemes. He identified both you and Amanda on several visits and confirmed the existence of the safe installed without the condominium's authorization. The police should be arriving there at this moment with a search warrant." Leonard's face went from pale to deep red. His gaze hardened as he took a step back like a cornered predator. "You have no idea who you're dealing with?" "I think we do," Robert replied calmly, new confidence emanating from him. "A second-rate con artist who thought he could deceive me, who used my vulnerability after losing my wife to insert Amanda into my life, who manipulated, lied, and stole without caring who he hurt in the process." "Including a child," Victoria added, placing her hands protectively on William's shoulders, who watched everything with wide eyes. The sound of approaching sirens broke the momentary tension. Leonard looked around, like a trapped animal seeking an escape route. "I called the police before coming," Henry explained, his tone surprisingly gentle, almost sad. "They have a warrant for your arrest and Amanda's. It's over, Leonard. This time I can't protect you." "Protect me?" Leonard let out a bitter laugh. "You never protected me, Henry. You were always the favorite son, the perfect heir to the Meadows legacy. I had to build my own path." "By stealing and deceiving?" Henry questioned, the hurt evident in his voice. "That's not what our parents taught us, Leo." The mention of their parents seemed to hit Leonard more deeply than any accusation of crime. For a brief moment, Victoria glimpsed genuine vulnerability in his eyes. "Amanda," Leonard murmured, suddenly remembering his accomplice. "Where is she?" "Not at the charity event, that's for sure," Robert replied. "There was never any event, was there? She must be preparing your escape, or perhaps just hers." The realization hit Leonard like a physical blow. Amanda had betrayed him, abandoning him to face the consequences alone. His features twisted into a mask of rage and humiliation. Police cars parked in front of the mansion, blue and red lights cutting through the rainy darkness. Two officers approached, led by a middle-aged detective whom Felicity greeted with familiarity. "Leonard Meadows," the detective formally called, "you are under arrest for fraud, conspiracy and theft. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As Leonard was handcuffed and led away, his threats and protests lost in the rain, Robert turned to the detective. "And what about Amanda Kingston?" "We already have a team heading to the flat in Chelsea. Another is at the airport. We received information that she bought tickets to Dublin, departing at 11:45 p.m. She won't escape, Felicity guaranteed with conviction. Not this time. Hours later, with the storm finally subsiding outside, Victoria, Robert, Henry and William waited in the mansion's living room. An atmosphere of emotional exhaustion and relief hung over everyone. William had finally fallen asleep on the sofa, his head resting on Victoria's lap, who stroked his hair distractedly. Felicity had gone to the police station to follow up on the developments, promising to call as soon as she had news. The silence in the room was comfortable, as if words were unnecessary after all they had been through. The phone rang, startling everyone except William, whose sleep remained undisturbed. Robert answered quickly, his body tense again. "Yes, I understand. Thank you." Hanging up, he turned to the others, a tired but genuine smile illuminating his face for the first time in weeks. It was Felicity. Amanda was arrested at the airport. She was trying to board a flight to Dublin with a false identity. Mariana Sutton, apparently her next persona. "And the money?" Henry asked, leaning forward in his armchair. "Recovered. It was in the flat's safe, exactly as we suspected. £800,000 in cash, plus some documents that Felicity said would open a can of worms. I think she meant can of worms." Robert chuckled. Briefly, the relief evident in every line of his body. A huge weight seemed to have been lifted from everyone's shoulders. William, as if sensing the change in atmosphere even in his sleep, sighed contentedly, settling more comfortably in Victoria's lap. "He fought bravely to stay awake until the end," Victoria commented tenderly, observing the boy's serene face. "A true hero." "The greatest of all," Robert agreed, sitting beside them and gently stroking his son's hair. "Without him, without his intuition and courage, we might never have discovered the truth. Children often see what we adults are too blind to see," Henry observed. "William always knew Victoria was innocent." "And I doubted her," Robert murmured, the guilt evident in his voice. "After 5 years of impeccable loyalty, I let Amanda convince me of her guilt in a matter of minutes." "You were vulnerable," Victoria said softly. "Amanda was your wife, someone you trusted completely. Still, I should have at least considered your side of the story, investigated better before accusing, before almost ruining your life." Robert's eyes met Victoria's, full of sincere regret. "Do you think you can forgive me someday?" Victoria reflected for a moment, her gaze alternating between Robert and the sleeping boy. "I think I already have," she finally replied, "but it will take some time to rebuild trust completely." "Time is something we have now," Robert said with a slight smile. "If you want to, of course." "I think this is my cue to leave," Henry announced, discreetly standing up. "It's past midnight and we've all had an intense day." "Thank you for everything, Henry," Robert said, getting up to hug his friend. "Without your help, we would never have succeeded. And I'm sorry about your brother," Victoria added sincerely. Henry's face took on a melancholic expression. Leonard made his choices. Perhaps now, finally, he can face the consequences and, who knows, find a better path. After Henry's departure, Robert sat down again beside Victoria and William, contemplating his sleeping son with evident paternal love. "I think we should take him to bed," Victoria suggested. "He's getting heavy." Carefully not to wake him, Robert picked William up in his arms. The boy mumbled something unintelligible, but didn't wake up, snuggling into his father's shoulder. Together, Victoria and Robert went upstairs towards the boys' room, as they had done hundreds of times before, but now in a subtly altered dynamic. As he placed him in bed and covered him, William briefly opened his eyes. "Auntie Vi?" he called sleepily. "I'm here, my prince," she replied, sitting on the edge of the bed. "You're staying, aren't you? Promise you won't leave again?" The vulnerability in the boy's voice broke Victoria's heart. She looked at Robert, uncertain. Despite everything that had happened, her situation in the house was still unclear. Would she be the nanny again? A family friend? Something more? Robert approached and took Victoria's hands in his. His palms were warm and reassuring. "I would very much like you to stay, Victoria. Not just as William's nanny, but as part of our family. These past few days have made me realize how much you mean to both of us. How much you've always meant." "Me too," William added, fighting sleep. "You're much nicer than Amanda." Victoria couldn't help a small laugh despite the tears that threatened to fall. "That's not a very difficult comparison, considering everything." "Stay," Robert pleaded, his eyes conveying much more than his words. "Please," with her heart full of contradictory emotions, relief, hope, a beginning of something she didn't yet dare to. "Name." Victoria nodded. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." William let out a small cry of joy before being overcome by sleep again. "I knew it," he murmured as his eyes closed. "I knew you'd come home." In the months that followed, many things changed at the Kingston mansion. Amanda and Leonard were convicted of their crimes, and Amanda's true identity was publicly revealed, leading other victims to come forward. The scandal filled the newspaper pages for weeks, but eventually, like all news, it was replaced by new dramas. Robert recovered not only his money, but also his confidence and joy of living, largely thanks to Victoria's constant presence and William's unconditional love. The company prospered under his renewed leadership, with Henry as his reliable right-hand man. The relationship between Robert and Victoria also evolved. What began as mutual respect and appreciation for her dedication to William gradually transformed into something deeper. Nighttime conversations after William fell asleep, Sunday strolls in the London Botanical Garden, small gestures of care and attention slowly built day by day, the foundations of a feeling they had both tried to deny for a long time. On a sunny afternoon in the mansion's garden, as they watched William play with his new puppy, a rescue dog adopted from the local shelter, to the astonishment of neighbors accustomed to purebred dogs, Robert finally found the courage to express his feelings. "You know, Victoria, I think sometimes we need to go through storms to find clear days like this," he said, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the setting sun that illuminated the garden. "Storms teach us to value calm," she softly agreed, still watching William, who laughed as the puppy tried to catch a ball, "and to value the people who stay by our side during them." Robert took Victoria's hand in his, a gesture that had become familiar in recent months. "You taught me that trusting again is possible, that true love doesn't manipulate or deceive. It protects, cares, endures." Victoria felt her heart race as Robert's gaze deepened into hers. There was a vulnerability in those eyes that she rarely saw in the always confident and controlled businessman. "What I'm trying to say, probably in the worst way possible," he continued with a nervous smile, "is that I've fallen in love with you, Victoria, not for what you do for William or for this house, but for who you are, for your strength, your integrity, your capacity to love even when everything conspires against you." Tears of happiness sparkled in Victoria's eyes, reflecting the sunset like diamonds. "I've fallen in love with you too, Robert. Perhaps a long time ago, but I never allowed those feelings to surface. There were so many barriers between us, our social difference, my position as an employee, then your marriage." "And now?" he asked, leaning slightly towards her, his familiar scent enveloping her like a hug. "Now there's nothing stopping us," she replied, meeting his lips in a tender and promising kiss, a seal of a new beginning. You're kissing." William's amused voice brought them back to reality. The boy watched them with a huge smile, his puppy jumping excitedly beside him. Robert and Victoria laughed, unembarrassed. There were no more secrets to hide, not in that newly formed family. "Do you think this is a problem?" Robert asked his son, his voice slightly concerned despite the smile. William thought for a moment, his expression serious as if considering a matter of extreme importance. Finally, he replied with the simple wisdom of children. "No, because you really love each other. Not like you and Amanda. You're like the princes and princesses in the stories Auntie Vi tells me. Your love is real." Robert extended his arm, inviting his son to join them. William ran and nestled between the two, forming the familiar embrace he had so longed for. The puppy, not wanting to be left out, jumped into the boy's lap, completing the picture. And so, under the orange sky of the London evening, in the mansion that once harbored so many lies and secrets, a new family was born, one built on foundations of honesty, respect, and genuine love. The truly valuable jewels, after all, were not those that could be stolen, but those cultivated day after day in gestures of affection, sincere words, and restored trust. "Some storms," Victoria whispered, observing William's happy smile and Robert's loving gaze, "are worth facing for the rainbow that comes afterward." And the rainbow that was forming in their lives promised to be the brightest and most lasting of all. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope Victoria and Robert's story has touched your hearts. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it here by clicking on your left. If you enjoyed this narrative of overcoming and true love, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and relationships. Don't miss our upcoming content. We look forward to reading your comments.